I've been on an old fighting game kick lately, as you could tell by my channel, and I've noticed that there's a difference in the way games are made now as to when they were made back then. Now, they're a lot simpler, like options in battle, or neutral that relies heavily on a move that moves you forward relatively fast. This has been a course for fighting games for a long time, starting with, though it's not as strong, or I would say as mindless as Drive Rush or Super Dash, it's with Street Fighter 4's FADC. Not that I mind tools like that, I think they could be engaging if done right, like FADC, but I digress. The reason for bringing up Street Fighter 4 in games from the mid-2000s is I believe the games from that era present an interesting median of older games and modern games, where they took a monstrous amount of skill and execution from games that came before them while simplifying and added leniency from games that came after. I believe Pocket Bravery fits into this category when it comes to bridging the gap between old school and new to an extent. A huge thank you to P-Cube and Stat Era Studio for sending me a code for Pocket Bravery via Keymailer, and thank you to all who have subscribed, watched, liked, and disliked my videos. I wouldn't be here without your support. Now that all that obligatory mumbo jumbo is out of the way, let's talk about Pocket Bravery. Pocket Bravery was developed by Stat Era Studios for PC with a release date of September 26, 2020. The console version, the one I'm playing right now, was later released April 10, 2025. What makes Pocket Bravery unique from the jump is the studio itself. Stat Era Studios is a Brazilian development team. As far as I know, this is rare for gaming development, even more so for fighting game development. And this cultural influence is present in the game with characters like Hadassah, Hector, and Jorge. They also have other characters in the game with different backgrounds. There are 13 characters present in Pocket Bravery with the aforementioned different cultural backgrounds, with 3 of them being unlockable. That's always nice to see in modern fighting games. Each character has a unique style of play that leans into what makes those countries stand out via their cultural background or their religious background. Like Daisuke, who's a character that plays like a Japanese sword character in other games based on Japanese swordsmen. Daisuke is one of the reasons I believe Pocket Bravery is a homage to fighting games of yore. If you've played Marvel vs. Capcom 3, you'll probably notice that some of the moves in Daisuke's moveset remind you of Virgil and Dante. Moves such as his super, special move, or even his command normals take inspiration from that character. He also has colors based on Dante and Virgil, so that definitely moves the needle on what I think. That's why he was who I used the majority of the time. It's not just Daisuke. Nuno kind of reminds me of Kyo from King of Fighters, at least in appearance. He kind of plays like Terry, to an extent. That all kind of lines up to the developer background with their fighting game knowledge, not just their heritage. Stat Era Studio states that they wanted to make a fighting game that pays homage to the older forms of King of Fighter and Street Fighter. When they first started development, they wanted to make the sprites similar to those of KOF 13. Similar to KOF 13. However, due to budgetary reasons and time constraints, they weren't able to do this. Stat Era Studios opted to do a style that was somewhat niche, but also kind of popular to an extent back in the day, a more chibi art style, and I like it. It brings me back to the days when I would go over to my cousin's house and he would have every system under the sun and games like King of Fighters R1. You know, I didn't hate him because he had it, I just didn't like that he bragged about it. Anyway, this pocket style doesn't take away from what I feel like is the most important thing in a fighting game, which is the combat. Similar to other portions of this game that take cues from older fighting games, the combat does too. Pocket Fighter is a 4-button fighter that consists of a light punch, light kick, heavy punch, and heavy kick. Use these buttons in tandem with a directional input to make special moves. And what I mean by directional inputs, I mean a DP motion or a fireball motion, not just pressing one direction in a button. This is great in my opinion. While I'm not a fan of press motions in fighting games, I do love a good DP and fireball motion. I know it's hard for some, but for me, it reminds me of the time when I was trying to do DP motions on the horrible Xbox 360 D-pad, or figuring out what the star move is in Tekken for the first time. I'm glad they're in, and it kind of adds to their goal of feeling nostalgic. But if you don't like that, they also have an accessibility mode in which you can press a button for specials. Combos themselves are akin to KOF 13 and Street Fighter 6 in a sense as well. Resources in Pocket Bravery are divided into 2 separate meters, the power meter and the elemental meter. The elemental meter is what is tied to enhanced moves. Like most fighting games, these are just better versions of a move. The power meter is what you use for super moves, as well as something prominent in the King of Fighters 13 and now Fatal Fury City of the Wolves. This feature is the ability to cancel special moves with another special move, and I love this in fighting games. It kind of gives you the autonomy to do what you want within the confines of the combo system. It's one of the reasons why I like Pocket Bravery. And while I do like Pocket Bravery, there are some issues I need to point out with the game, particularly a me problem. I think that's a me problem, and a presentation problem. The me problem is that I feel like I am missing inputs for special moves. When I try to do one, I would either get a command normal or nothing at all. At first, I thought it was me, and I'm still not sure if it isn't. I'm not the best at fighting games, and newer fighting games tend to have more input leniency when it comes to special moves. So I booted up Ultra Street Fighter 4, Ultimate Marvel vs. Capcom 3, BlazBlue Central Fiction, and even older titles such as Street Fighter Third Strike. And all of my inputs work. It could be a plethora of things, like me just being bad at fighting games. It could also be that the input buffer I have set in place is too high for me. Pocket Bravery gives you the ability to set your input buffer window for inputs between 0 and 10. This is something I've never seen done in a fighting game, at least on the front end, besides being able to adjust the input delay for online scenarios and training modes. It's a cool little addition. Another issue I had was the screen tearing. Screen tearing in a pixel art game like this can be detrimental to how the game plays or it looks playing. It happens quite often, but not so much that it completely ruins the experience when in a match, though this shouldn't happen at all for fighting games, especially when it's aggressively visible to the naked eye. Besides the bugs, Pocket Bravery has an impressive number of game modes to choose from. There's a story mode, arcade mode, survival with time attack, trials, combo trials as well, something called a Rainbow Edition, Hot Pursuit, and an online mode. The story itself is told in a way a lot of new indie games are, in that it invokes a well-trodden visual novel path. You follow the protagonist, Nuno Alves, on his quest for revenge against his old gang or terrorist group, PAC, after being imprisoned. He escapes with the help of a man named Lobo. Lobo trains Nuno in the ways of Yore, a strange power that has swept the world by storm. After their escape, the two reluctantly join an organization by the name of Ghost Hat, who share the same goal as Nuno, beat his old boss of PAC, Hector. Honestly, the story has a great premise. The characters you meet are likable and charming, but in some portions, it feels like the visual novel parts of the game kind of go on too long. However, I'm not going to disparage that too much because I like BlazBlue, and that's like 90% of all of its story mode. Online mode is rollback, so that's good, but reports have said that there are some issues with it, and there's no crossplay unfortunately. But if you can't connect online, there's enough for you to do offline, though granted you are spending money on this product, so it should work. After sitting down and playing Pocket Bravery for a while, I can say that Stat Era definitely achieved their goal of making something that harkens back to an older era of fighting games. Not only in its presentation, but with the gameplay as well. I think they sit on a fine line between the Street Fighter 4 era and to what we have now. So should you go out and buy Pocket Bravery? It depends. Are you willing to overlook the performance issues such as screen tearing and some of the online issues? If you are, then I say go for it. $19.99 is the price you would have to dish out for a tribute to this bygone era.